Hi there, my name is Zoe Daly and I am the founder of Eru. It's a company that makes woolen blankets reclaiming ancient Irish traditions, and it's named after Eru, who is a sovereignty goddess, one of my guides. And I work with these Celtic sovereignty goddesses who are always teaching me how to bring in their ancient ways into everyday life. So today I was going to speak a little bit about the Morrigan, who is in this picture here. She's one of my guides for a long time. She's a very well-known figure in Irish mythology, and she's known, this picture is by Jim Fitzpatrick, who's an amazing Irish artist who captures these goddesses, I think, in the most beautiful way that I've seen. And the Morrigan is known as a goddess of war, a goddess of destruction, of battle, and she's associated with death. So she's fierce. She's kind of like a Kali Ma energy, and I work with her in that way. So I was going to share a bit. She first came into my life many years ago. The crow is an animal that's very much associated with her, and she really speaks through nature and through the crow, in my experience. So years ago, when I was very much living in a situation which wasn't so good for me, and I was, probably knew it in my heart and was ignoring it on the outside, she kept coming to me in my meditation. She appeared through the crows actually around me, and they were talking to me, which I tried very hard to ignore until I couldn't ignore them anymore. So they were literally landing on near my front door, and they were saying to me, death is coming, death is coming. And they were just like very matter of fact about it. So I was like, la 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 la. I didn't really want to hear, but I knew in my heart that they were signaling something to address in my life. I think that's the biggest message of the Morrigan for me, of how she works. She works as a warning system if we're willing to listen, and she speaks through totems. She speaks through nature. She's so connected to nature. So she eventually, I did start listening, and I became willing to see what was about to die in my life, what needed to die in my life. And you know, it can be so scary to go those places, and that's why the Morrigan is a great ally, because she is unafraid of going to the dark places. She's unafraid of death. She's a guide for death, and she's there to give us kind of, give us a warning and then take us through that death, always with the message that death is a portal to rebirth. If you have to go into a death, it's because something needs to die, something isn't serving you any longer, and there's immense potential behind that door. And facing that death, whatever it may be, if it's a relationship, it's a career, it could be just belief systems that we have, you know, carried ancestrally or created through society. She's always encouraging us to face these deaths, because behind those deaths lie our greatest growth and our greatest power and our greatest healing. And it does take guts to go there. But she's quite persistent, and I once I opened myself to that, because I think sometimes we can not even be aware that we're not facing darkness within us. We think we might have healed something, or we're unwilling, maybe it's kind of somewhat unconsciously unwilling to go, or we might think we've done that bit of the work, but we're so far removed from it that we don't even know that we're carrying it. So for me, I feel the Morrigan is a really good ally like that, that she will bring our attention to the unseen places within us. And she's also a great guide for being able to look at the darkness within us, but also around us. And you know, in she has this in mythology. She's famous, especially in Irish mythology, for being present at death, foretelling death, prophesying death, especially of one of our greatest warriors, Cuchulainn, where she came to him 3 times, and she tried to trip him up. And for me, I believe that story is about the same thing, the same role that she plays to me, and to anyone who's willing to work with her in that way, is like a warning system. You're going too far that way, or you're going into, you're losing touch with your true essence, you're losing touch with your soul. And she's always here to steer us back, and usually that involves going to some dark, messy places that we might not want to go to. But that's why she's so fierce, and she's so associated with the dark and with the battle, and death and blood, much like Kali Ma is pictured. So yeah, in the end with Cuchulainn, I believe she was warning him to come back from an extreme, out of balance way. That's what I personally believe, that he was I believe that's what a lot of our mythology is telling us, actually, about this great imbalance that occurred in our human history, between these masculine and feminine energies, and the forces that would destroy those, or seek to destroy those. I believe Cuchulainn was an example of that, and I believe that she was playing a very divine feminine role by bringing a warning to him, and which he didn't listen to, and in the end she just prophesied his death. So yeah, she's unafraid, and she makes no apologies for bringing. Sometimes I find with the way she symbolizes to me something, it's very direct. So it's like one time, in my garden, I had left some food out for the birds, and the little birds were coming, and then this huge crow came down and just demolished all the food. And I was thinking, oh my God, the poor little birds. And the crow said, I make no apologies for feeding my family, and took the food and went off. And I was like, whoa. And she was displaying to me an energetic, an aspect that I very much needed to embody in my life at that time. And she came, she swooped, she took what she needed, she didn't apologize, and she just did it in one swift motion, which is a very important aspect of those divine feminine qualities that we all need to activate, I believe, to successfully rid ourselves of something that's not working in our life. And I believe that divine feminine aspect exists within men and women, but it's that ferocious mother energy of a mother bear or a mother lioness who's defending her cubs. You'd never mess with that energy. So for me, the Morrigan displays that energy that we need to be brave enough to go to those places within us, and to be brave enough then to take action in those spaces, to cut away and kill and destroy what's not working. And that's, she always said to me what a lot of the sovereignty goddesses talk about in terms of the land. They're so connected to the land. They talk about, she said, this needs to burn down, you need to raise the field, which is a term for literally setting fire to a field in order for it to burn down, and so that everything can grow again. It needs to be destroyed. So once I worked with her and I followed her advice and I took that guidance, I had to go and do it. She wasn't telling me what to do. She was displaying, mirroring what needed to be done, and I did it. And then she helped guide me actually to a new path, and really helped me get in flow with synchronicities, that I was then meeting the right people, discovering the right things that were much more in alignment with my true soul purpose. I find the Morrigan has been, she's such a mysterious, dark figure that she's been, I feel, misrepresented. I think some images of her, they tend to like hypersexualize her, because she's associated with battle and death, and that can be like sexy and glamorous. And I feel like they're missing the point with her, because she embodies that beauty way of a divine feminine goddess, of one of these beautiful Celtic sovereignty goddesses. But that doesn't, and she's unafraid of death, but somehow that gets twisted if you look in the pictures of her sometimes, or the beliefs or people following her, gets twisted into this weird sexual, hypersexualized thing, which I think misses the point. And another way I feel she's been misrepresented is, she's described as like bloodthirsty, or I just think it's, I suppose, a misunderstanding of her, and to cast her into that role. Whereas I think that they're missing the point. Like, she's not just about the death, she's about going to the death for a reason, for rebirth, for regrowth, for realignment with our soul's true purpose. For me, when I connect with her, she is just so deeply in love with the earth. She's such a guardian of the planet and a guardian of the earth. And I believe when she walked the planet, that's what she was doing, and displaying and birthing. And when she is still a guardian energy of the earth. And I feel her deep love and reverence for our planet, for our earth, for our nature. So I experience her in a very positive way, even though she's displayed often as a very dark force. And I feel that like that darkness is sometimes twisted to be ultimately hijacked, because she's such a powerful force to work with. And the main point that she's saying as well, always to me, as well as the other sovereignty goddesses, is that she is an ally. She is mirroring to us our potential, our power, our sovereignty, she's always reminding me that, to connect with our own direct connection to source. And always she is guiding me to direct connectly with the earth, and be in communion with her and communication with her. And we can do this. We all have the ability to do this, and listen and hear the animals or the birds talking, or the water. And that's how she speaks to me. So she's always reminding and making that very clear that she's mirroring this connection. Her embodied divinity is really showing us the potential of us embodying our direct connection to source and rooting that down into the earth. And that for me is the definition of the sovereignty goddesses, what they all do. They don't want to be worshipped. They're not here to that's what I find with the Morrigan. There's a lot of kind of mystique around her, and people talk about her like, ooh, the Morrigan, or she has like a following, or people follow her in a worshipy way, which I think again is just a misrepresentation. I don't feel she ever wants me to worship her. I make offerings to her in the same way I would. I have an altar to many ascended masters that I would work with, or guides, my higher self, to create altars as portals of communication, but or offerings in the same way I make an offering to the earth or the elemental beings, and that's out of reverence and love and honoring, but never out of worshipping, because I believe we're here to work together. We're here, especially the Celtic sovereignty goddesses are here to especially right now, I feel to reawaken our heart's knowledge of these ancient ways that we used to connect with the earth, connect with the planet, and we were embodying our divinity, our direct connection to source, which was also feeding into the earth, benefiting the earth, and receiving from the earth. And this sovereign connection always happening, which serves our own soul's growth and serves our community and serves our land. And anything that's out of alignment with that, when you work with a Morrigan, she helps bring that into our attention, and that's not always something we want to hear. So I had a dream the other night that I was talking to this guy about the Morrigan, and he was saying, yeah, well, my Morrigan guided me to look at this. And I just thought that was a really cool expression that, we all have this ability to tap into this aspect of ourselves, which is that ferocious, fierce, unapologetic, divine feminine quality, that is our guide for like cutting through the darkness within, in order to rescue and resuscitate the power that lies behind that. Like in a very direct surgical extraction procedure. And you do need to be brave and have courage to do that. But, that is so rewarded by coming back into alignment and receiving more of ourselves and more of our soul's gifts. And ultimately, I think that aspect of ourselves that we can activate or work with the Morrigan in this way is to activate that aspect within ourselves for our own soul's growth. I also feel that she is so relevant at this time on the planet because there is so much going on that it happens in plain sight, but yet we're also numb to look directly at some of the ways that the darkness or agendas are playing out on the planet. That it's like a war zone out there, and the Morrigan, who is a goddess of war, goddess of battle, if we're really to be honest and have our eyes wide open to what's really happening, there is a war and a battle going on here every day for our consciousness and for our souls. So I feel like she is also such a great ally to standing beside us while we are able to look at these agendas or the darkness, so that we can dissolve them, so we can bring the light to them, and so we can so we won't become numb and become, when we become numb to something, whether it's within us, it's a darkness or something within us, or when we're numb to the darkness outside us, that just creates an open space for that part of our soul to be manipulated, to be hijacked, to become less of what we are, and become more and more out of alignment. So we need to reclaim all these spaces within us. And I know from my direct experience with working with Morrigan, she is a great guide and a great ally to do that with. And at first I was kind of reluctant of working with her because I was probably a bit scared of all these way that she'd been represented through our mythology of this goddess of destruction, goddess of battle, frenzy, war, bloodshed. And I think actually that's a way of keeping us from the true essence of her, which is such a gift, really, a gift to ourselves and a gift to bring out to our communities and to our land. She's a really fierce, loving guardian of the planet, and I think that that's what we need to be right now for our planet and for our own souls. So I hope this was helpful, and I invite you to work with the Morrigan, or invite her as an ally, with, you know, the emphasis that she is not, you know, in my experience of her, she is not here to be worshipped. She is here as an ally, as a mirror of our own capacity to look into the deepest, darkest places within ourselves, and within or without everything that's happening out there, and be brave enough to go right into them and reclaim the gold and the power that's there, which we can bring back in service to ourselves and in service to everything around us. So that's why I love the Morrigan, and I'm so glad that that I met her and that she guided me. And yeah, I would listen to whenever I see the crows now, or, you know, I always tune in, and sometimes they're quite funny, and they are quite direct in their what they're displaying. Either if you can receive messages telepathically from them, or even just sometimes their actions, what they're doing, carries a message in it. So it's a really fun way to work with the Morrigan as well, because I find that the crows and her energy, they, even though they work within the dark realms, they have great sense of humor, and it can be fun to bring some light to the darkness. I hope that was interesting, and yeah, I just really invite anybody who this resonates with for that invitation to work with her in the way that's helped me so much in my life. Thank you.